I am Harper, 28, and I never thought my accounting degree would end up being my shield against my own family. Growing up with parents who treated money like a weapon shaped my adult life in ways I never anticipated. When Mom texted about our mandatory family vacation to Hawaii, I felt that familiar knot in my stomach. Family trips always came with invisible price tags and unspoken debts. I knew better, but some childish part of me still hoped this time would be different. Before I continue this story, drop a comment letting me know if you have ever had family members try to use your credit card without permission, and subscribe if you have ever had to set hard boundaries with people who should have protected you. The roots of our family's unhealthy relationship with money ran deep. From the outside, we looked like the perfect American family. Dad Gerald owned a successful insurance company in downtown Seattle. Mom Diane was the quintessential homemaker with a talent for hosting elaborate dinner parties that impressed the neighbors. Our two-story colonial in the suburbs screamed upper-middle-class success. But behind closed doors, our financial reality was built on quicksand. Dad believed image was everything. People do business with successful people. Harper, he would say while signing loan documents for yet another luxury car. Nobody trusts a businessman who drives a beater. By the time I was 10, I knew the difference between a Rolex and an Omega, could identify designer labels at a glance, and understood that appearances mattered more than bank balances. Mom was equally invested in our family facade. She tracked the vacations, home renovations, and purchases of other families in our social circle with obsessive precision. The Andersons just booked a cruise to Alaska, she would announce at dinner. We should look at Mediterranean options, more exclusive. It was never about enjoyment, always about one-upmanship. Neither of my parents talked openly about money with us kids. Bills were paid behind closed doors, voices often raised. The credit card was declined at restaurants occasionally, leading to hushed arguments, and my mother's embarrassed smile as she pulled out the backup card. My brother James, 4 years older than me, was already mimicking Dad's spending habits by high school, maxing out his first credit card within months of receiving it. When I was 15, the carefully constructed image imploded. Dad's business had been struggling for years, propped up by second mortgages and personal loans. Mom discovered he had a separate apartment downtown and a girlfriend who worked at his office. The divorce was nuclear. Their battle over assets revealed the true state of our family finances to everyone, including me. The house had 3 mortgages. Dad's company was worth a quarter of what he had claimed. Mom had secret credit cards Dad knew nothing about. They fought over who would claim me as a dependent on their taxes, while simultaneously arguing about who had to pay for my education. College became my escape plan, but neither parent would help with tuition unless I followed their approved career path. Dad wanted me in business to eventually take over his company. Mom thought I should pursue law like her brother. I chose accounting for myself, fascinated by the transparency and order of numbers after growing up in financial chaos. Those 4 years were brutal. I worked 30 hours weekly at a campus coffee shop, another 15 tutoring math, and still graduated with $60,000 in student loans. But every double shift and missed party was worth it. For the first time, I understood exactly where I stood financially. No illusions, no manipulation, just clear numbers in black and white. My first job after graduation was with a mid-size accounting firm in Portland. The starting salary seemed enormous after years of scraping by. I found a small 1-bedroom apartment, furnished it sparsely but functionally, and created my first real budget. The day I hung my diploma on the wall, I felt a profound sense of achievement. This place modest, as it was represented financial independence. That independence became a target almost immediately. First came Mom asking for a small loan to renovate her bathroom after she had downsized to a condo. Then Dad needed help with temporary cash flow issues at his business. My brother James wanted me to co-sign a car lease because his credit was unfairly damaged during his divorce. The requests were always urgent, the repayment terms always vague. After loaning $3,000 to my mother that vanished into her bottomless renovation project and never returned, I sought therapy. My therapist, Dr. Winters, helped me understand the dysfunctional financial relationships in my family and establish boundaries. Your financial health is part of your self-care, she explained. You would not let family members damage your physical health. Your financial health deserves the same protection. It took 2 years of weekly sessions, but I eventually developed a personal policy. I would not loan money to family. I could give gifts within my budget if I chose to, but never with the expectation of repayment. I would not co-sign loans or share credit accounts. Most importantly, I would be transparent about these boundaries, even when it created conflict. Both parents tested these boundaries repeatedly. Dad would ask for business investments instead of loans. Mom would try emotional manipulation, questioning whether I really loved her if I would let her struggle. Each time I held firm, the fallout was intense but briefer than the time before. By my 27th birthday, they had largely accepted my financial independence, though not without occasional jabs about my stinginess at family gatherings. That tenuous peace was about to be shattered by a group text that would expose just how little my boundaries were actually respected. The group text arrived on a Tuesday morning in March as I was preparing for a client meeting. Mom had created a new group called Adam's Family Hawaii, 2025, that included me, my brother James, his wife Stephanie, my Aunt Carolyn, and cousins Travis and Jessica. The message was characteristically enthusiastic. Exciting news, everyone! After much thought, I have decided we all need a proper family reunion this summer. I have researched the perfect destination, Hawaii. 10 days at beautiful resorts on Maui and Kauai. This is mandatory attendance for healing old wounds and creating precious new memories together. Diane has spoken, LOL. Red flags immediately popped up. Mandatory attendance and healing old wounds in the same paragraph was classic mom manipulation. The unnecessary capitalization of all and perfect telegraphed her determination. And referring to herself in the third person was something she only did when she had fully committed to a plan and expected no resistance. The responses came quickly. James and Stephanie sent enthusiastic emojis. Aunt Carolyn asked about dates. The cousins expressed excitement with multiple exclamation points. I put my phone away to focus on my client, planning to respond later when I could carefully word my hesitation. By lunch, my mother had sent 14 more messages to the group with links to resorts, potential activities, and requests for everyone's flight preferences. My name appeared repeatedly. Harper loves snorkeling, so we must do the premium reef tour. And Harper always wanted to see volcanoes as a child, so the helicopter tour is a must. None of this was true. I had never expressed interest in either activity. When I called James that evening to get his read on the situation, he seemed surprised by my hesitation. Mom said you were excited about this trip, he said. She mentioned you two discussed it last month. That never happened, I replied. This is the first I am hearing about any of this. James sighed. Well, that tracks. Mom has been talking about this trip for weeks, but every time I asked if you were on board, she changed the subject. The pressure continued building over the next few days. Mom created a shared digital vacation folder with a detailed itinerary, accommodation information, and activity planning sheets. Each hotel was 5-star, each activity premium priced. A shared expense tracker spreadsheet appeared, but remained conspicuously empty of actual numbers. Each time I tried to ask about costs in the group chat, my questions went unanswered or were deflected with comments like, "We deserve this splurge after everything we have been through," or "Life is short, worry about money later." Meanwhile, I was receiving private messages from family members that revealed the manipulation happening behind the scenes. Aunt Carolyn texted, "So glad you convinced your mother to plan this. She says you have been pushing for a family trip for ages." Cousin Jessica wrote, "Your mom mentioned you might help with some of the activity costs since you are doing so well at your job. So generous of you." These messages sent my anxiety spiraling. Mom was clearly setting me up to foot a significant portion of the bill while simultaneously telling everyone this trip was my idea. Classic triangulation, just like Dr. Winters had described in our sessions. 10 days after the initial announcement, Mom scheduled a family Zoom call to finalize details. I joined from my office during lunch, notepad, ready to ask direct questions about budget and expectations. The call was a masterclass in evasion. Every time I brought up costs, someone would interrupt with questions about dinner reservations or beach access. After 45 minutes of this dance, I finally spoke up firmly. Before we go any further, I need to understand the expected costs for each person. I have my own budget to consider. The momentary silence was broken by my mother's dismissive laugh. Oh, Harper, always so concerned about her precious budget. Flights are $1,000 each. Hotels will be about $300 per night, but we are splitting rooms to save money. Activities will depend on what we choose, but set aside another $2,000 to be safe. If you cannot afford it, stay behind. The deliberate shame in her tone was familiar, designed to make me feel cheap and childish for asking responsible financial questions. Everyone on the call shifted uncomfortably, avoiding their cameras. I kept my expression neutral, despite the internal fury. Thank you for clarifying. That helps me plan. I responded calmly already, knowing I would not be spending $5,000 on a trip designed without my input. My measured response seemed to satisfy her, and she immediately pivoted to discussing luau options. I remained silent for the rest of the call, observing how she had positioned herself as the generous planner, while making me the difficult one for asking basic financial questions. After the call, I drafted a polite message declining the trip, citing work commitments. Before sending it, I decided to sleep on it, wanting to make sure my response was firm but not emotionally reactive. That turned out to be a critical delay, because the very next day, everything escalated beyond anything I could have anticipated. Friday started normally. I arrived at the office early to prepare for a client presentation, grabbed coffee from the break room, and settled in to review my notes. At 9:17, my phone buzzed with a credit card alert. Thinking it was just confirming my coffee shop purchase from earlier, I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again, and again. 4 separate purchase alerts in under a minute was unusual enough to warrant immediate attention. I unlocked my phone and felt my stomach drop. 4 charges from United Airlines, each for $4,500, had just been processed on my primary credit card. $18,000 in airline tickets purchased within the last 5 minutes. My first thought was fraud by some anonymous hacker. I immediately called the credit card company, navigating through the automated system with growing impatience until I reached a fraud department representative. I am seeing 4 purchases from United Airlines made today at 9:15 a.m. Pacific Time, the representative confirmed. Each purchase is for 1 business class ticket from Portland to Maui on June 12th, returning June 22nd. The confirmation emails were sent to your personal email address on file. Would you like me to read the passenger names? A cold certainty settled over me before she even finished reading the names: Diane Adams, Gerald Adams, James Adams, Stephanie Adams, my parents and my brother with his wife. $18,000 in luxury airline tickets for the Hawaii trip, purchased on my credit card without my knowledge. I did not authorize these charges. I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the rage building inside me. I need to dispute all of them immediately. While the representative processed my dispute, I opened my email on my work computer. There they were, 4 booking confirmations from United, each showing receipt of payment from my credit card. More disturbing was the discovery that the emails had been marked as read, though I had never opened them. Someone had accessed both my credit card information and my email account. The violation was breathtaking in its audacity. My phone buzzed with a text as I was still on the call with the credit card company. Mom, thank you so much for your generous gift to the family, sweetheart. Business class will make the long flight so much more comfortable for your father's back. Cannot wait for our special trip together. Love you lots. The calculated timing confirmed everything. She had waited until she thought I would be busy with my morning client meeting, used my card information, checked my email to mark the confirmations as read, and then texted as if I had willingly purchased the tickets as a gift. The entire sequence had been meticulously planned. I finished my call with the credit card company, having disputed the charges, locked my card, and arranged for a new one to be expedited. The representative confirmed they would investigate the unauthorized use and suggested I file a police report, especially given that someone had also accessed my email account. With hands still shaking, I called United Airlines next. The customer service agent confirmed the tickets had indeed been purchased that morning. The booking was made online, she explained. The purchaser used saved payment information from your previous bookings with us. Would you like me to cancel these reservations now that you have disputed the payment? Yes, please cancel them immediately, I instructed. My next call was to my email provider to report the unauthorized access and change all my passwords. The technical support specialist confirmed logins to my account from an unrecognized device early that morning using my correct password. It appears someone may have had your password, he explained. I recommend enabling two-factor authentication immediately and checking any other accounts that might share the same password. By 11:30, I had locked down my email with new security measures, changed passwords on all my financial accounts, and documented everything with screenshots and call reference numbers. Only then did I respond to my mother's text. I did not purchase those tickets. I have disputed the charges, reported the fraud to my credit card company, and had the reservations canceled. Do not use my financial information without my explicit permission again. Her response was immediate and indignant. What are you talking about? We discussed this on the Zoom call. You agreed to help with flights since you cannot take time off for the full planning process. Everyone is counting on this. Why would you embarrass me this way? This blatant gaslighting might have worked on the younger version of me, but years of therapy had equipped me to recognize it instantly. We had never discussed me paying for anyone's flights, let alone business class tickets at over $4,000 each. My phone began ringing nonstop. Mom, Dad, James, Aunt Carolyn. I silenced it and focused on completing my work responsibilities for the day, the professional part of my brain taking over, while the emotional part processed the betrayal. By late afternoon, my voicemail was full, and my text messages had exploded with family reactions ranging from confusion to outrage. James claimed he had known nothing about the tickets until Mom called him crying about my taking back my gift. Dad demanded I call him immediately to sort out this misunderstanding. Aunt Carolyn sent a lengthy message about family support and how money concerns should never overshadow blood bonds. As I drove home that evening, I felt surprisingly calm. The boundary violation was so extreme that my usual anxiety about family conflict had been replaced by absolute certainty. This was not a gray area or a misunderstanding. It was financial fraud, identity theft, and a deliberate betrayal of trust by the people who should have protected me. That certainty would be tested sooner than I expected. As I pulled into my apartment complex parking lot, I spotted my father's black Mercedes in a visitor space. He was leaning against the hood, arms crossed, waiting for me. Dad straightened as I parked beside him, his business smile already in place. At 62, Gerald Adams still maintained the polished appearance of a successful executive, from his tailored suit to his professionally whitened teeth. Only the tight lines around his eyes betrayed his tension as I approached. Harper, sweetheart, he began, moving to hug me. I stepped back, maintaining distance. Why are you here, Dad? I asked, clutching my keys tightly. And how did you know where I live? I never gave you this address. He waved dismissively. Your mother has it in her emergency contacts list. Listen, we need to talk about this little misunderstanding with the tickets. There is no misunderstanding, I replied, walking toward my building entrance. Mom used my credit card without permission to buy $18,000 worth of airline tickets. That is fraud, not a misunderstanding. He followed his cordial tone, slipping slightly. Your mother was just trying to help everyone be together. You know how important family is to her. She mentioned you had discussed helping with costs. That conversation never happened, I said, firmly stopping at the building's security door. I never agreed to pay for anyone's flights, let alone business class tickets. Well, there may have been a communication error, he conceded his salesman skills, pivoting to a new angle. But now the whole family is upset. Your mother is in tears. James and Stephanie had already requested vacation time. This is creating a real problem. I felt a familiar pressure building, the old urge to smooth things over, to be the reasonable one to fix the problems my parents created. I took a deep breath, remembering Dr. Winter's advice. You did not cause this. You cannot control it. and you are not responsible for curing it. The problem was created when Mom stole my credit card information and accessed my email without permission. I stated clearly, I have reversed the charges and reported the fraud. That is the appropriate response to financial theft. Dad's facade cracked. His face flushed as he stepped closer. After all we have done for you, this is how you repay us, by accusing your mother of theft, by ruining a family vacation everyone was looking forward to. What exactly have you done for me, Dad? I asked quietly. You refused to help with college unless I studied what you wanted. I worked multiple jobs and took out loans to pay for my education. I have supported myself entirely since graduation. We gave you life, he snapped. We raised you, clothed you, fed you, and now you have this fancy job and this nice apartment and you cannot even help your family with one vacation. One chance for everyone to be together? I pulled out my phone and opened the voice memo app, pressing record. Something in Dad's escalating tone warned me to document this conversation. Did you know Mom was going to use my card without asking? I asked directly. He hesitated, then deflated slightly. We discussed options. Your brother's credit is maxed out from the divorce settlement. Your cousin Travis is between jobs. Your mother's cards are near their limits from renovation costs. So you decided to use mine without asking, I pressed. We were going to tell you after he admitted. Present it as a done deal so you could not overthink it and back out. Your mother thought you would be more agreeable once everything was booked. The casual way he described their premeditated financial theft was stunning. Have you and Mom done this before? Used other people's cards without permission? His silence was answer enough. Your brother needed help with some expenses last year, he finally said. He could not qualify for a loan, so your mother helped him by using your cousin Jessica's card. It all worked out fine. Jessica was upset at first, but came around when we explained the family emergency. I felt sick, so this is a pattern. You and Mom just take what you want from whoever has available credit. Do not be so dramatic, he snapped. Families help each other. Sometimes that means sharing resources. You have plenty of money and barely any expenses. You could easily afford to help with this trip if you were not so selfish. I am ending this conversation, I said, reaching for the door scanner. Please leave or I will call building security. He grabbed my arm, his grip tight enough to make me wince. You need to fix this before it gets worse, he hissed. Your mother has already told everyone you generously purchased the tickets. If you reverse that now, you will tear this family apart. Is that what you want? To be the one who destroyed our chance to be together? I pulled away. What I want is for my family to respect basic boundaries and laws. Using someone's credit card without permission is illegal. I will not protect you or Mom from the consequences of your actions anymore. You ungrateful little bitch, he snarled, all pretense. Gone. We should have known you would turn out like this, always thinking you are better than the rest of us with your fancy degree and your budgets. If you go through with this dispute, do not expect to be welcomed at family gatherings again. You will be cut off completely. I held up my phone so he could see the recording in progress. Thank you for making your position so clear. I think this conversation is over. His eyes widened as he realized I had recorded his threats. Without another word, he stormed back to his car and peeled out of the parking lot. Inside my apartment, I collapsed onto the couch, adrenaline finally giving way to exhaustion. My phone continued buzzing with messages. A text from James caught my eye. I am so sorry. I knew they were planning something, but did not know they would use your card. They have done this to me before too. Can we talk tomorrow? Another from my cousin Jessica. Just heard what happened. They did the same thing to me last year with James's car repair, claimed it was a family emergency. Cost me $3,000 I never got back. These messages confirmed what I had suspected. The problem was far more extensive than just today's incident. My parents had been financially abusing multiple family members, creating a web of obligation and manipulation. I spent a sleepless night researching identity theft, family, financial abuse, and protective measures. By morning, I had a clear plan for protecting myself, but I still underestimated just how far my family would go to maintain their system of financial exploitation. Saturday morning brought a message from my mother announcing an emergency family meeting at Aunt Carolyn's house that afternoon. All family members must attend to resolve this unfortunate situation, she wrote. 2 p.m. sharp. This affects everyone. My instinct was to refuse, but a follow-up text from James changed my mind. Please come. I think it is time everyone heard the truth. I will back you up. I arrived at Aunt Carolyn's suburban home at exactly 2, steeling myself for confrontation. The scene inside was worse than I had imagined. Not just my immediate family, but the extended clan had assembled Aunt Carolyn and Uncle Roger cousins Travis and Jessica with their spouses, even my elderly grandmother who rarely left her retirement community. 14 people in total, all wearing expressions ranging from concern to outright hostility. Mom had positioned herself center stage in the living room, eyes red from what appeared to be recent tears. Dad stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder in a show of unified support. The staging was deliberate, designed to cast them as the wounded parties. Harper, Mom began, as I took the only empty seat we have called this meeting because your actions have affected the entire family. Everyone was looking forward to this healing vacation, and your sudden reversal has caused tremendous pain and confusion. Before I could respond, Aunt Carolyn jumped in. Your mother has been planning this for months, Harper. She wanted it to be special for everyone, especially after the difficult years we have all had. I cannot understand why you would agree to help and then publicly embarrass her this way. I never agreed to purchase tickets for anyone, I stated firmly. I never offered to pay for any part of this trip. In fact, I had serious reservations about the cost that I expressed during our Zoom call. That is not true, Mom interjected. You specifically said you wanted to contribute since you could not help with planning. Everyone heard you. Several family members nodded, though I noticed James and Jessica remained still, eyes downcast. What exactly did you hear me say? I challenged, looking around the room. Can anyone quote my exact words where I offered to spend $18,000 on business class tickets? The uncomfortable silence was broken by Uncle Roger. Well, I was not on the call, but Diane said you had agreed to handle the flights as your contribution. Diane said, I repeated. But none of you actually heard me make this offer because it never happened. Harper has been under tremendous stress at work, my mother said, her voice dropping to a concerned whisper. The doctor thinks she might be experiencing some memory issues related to anxiety. We have been trying to support her through this difficult time. The calculated manipulation left me momentarily speechless. My mother had just suggested to our entire family that I was mentally unstable and experiencing memory loss, a condition she had completely fabricated. What doctor I finally managed. I am not seeing any doctor for anxiety or memory issues. Mom exchanged a meaningful look with Dad. Sweetheart, we do not need to discuss your private health matters in front of everyone. The important thing is that we support you while making sure this special family time is not disrupted. The gaslighting was so blatant it was almost impressive. She was simultaneously casting me as mentally unwell, while positioning herself as the concerned, supportive mother protecting my privacy, even as she exposed my supposed condition to the entire family. This is absurd, I said. I am not having memory problems or seeing any doctor for such issues. What happened is very simple. Mom used my credit card without my knowledge or permission to purchase airline tickets. When I discovered the unauthorized charges, I disputed them and reported the fraud as any reasonable person would do. Why would your mother need to steal your card information? Grandmother asked, genuine confusion in her voice. You offered to help with the trip. Everyone heard about your generous gift. Everyone heard from Mom, not from me, I clarified. I never made such an offer. This is exactly what the doctor mentioned, Mom interjected smoothly. These confabulations where she creates alternate versions of events. We need to be patient with her. The room shifted uncomfortably, and I saw the trap closing. No matter what I said, it would be dismissed as evidence of my supposed mental instability. It was a masterful manipulation technique, one that rendered the victim's testimony inherently untrustworthy. Unexpectedly, Jessica stood up. I believe Harper, she said quietly. The same thing happened to me last year. Aunt Diane said there was a family emergency with James's car and used my card to pay for repairs. She said James would pay me back within a week, but that never happened. When I brought it up later, everyone acted like I had agreed to give the money as a gift. The room fell silent. Mom's expression hardened. Jessica, that was a completely different situation. James was stranded and needed immediate help. You offered your card. I did not, Jessica insisted. You called asking for my card number to order birthday supplies online because yours was not working. I found out about the car repair when the charge appeared on my statement. A crack had appeared in the unified family front. Travis shifted uncomfortably, then spoke. They used my card for the deposit on Mom's kitchen renovation last summer. Said it was just temporary until the home equity loan came through. The loan was denied, and I was stuck with the $8,000 charge. One by one, similar stories emerged. Cousin Michael's card used for grandmother's new furniture. Aunt Carolyn's daughter Emma stuck with Uncle Roger's medical bills. Each incident followed the same pattern: urgent need, temporary use of someone else's credit, promises of repayment, then gaslighting when the victim questioned the unpaid debt. James finally broke his silence. Harper is telling the truth. Mom and Dad have been doing this for years. They did it to me so many times. I maxed out all my cards and ruined my credit. It contributed to my divorce when Stephanie discovered the debt I had been hiding. Stephanie nodded grimly. We nearly went bankrupt because of loans and credit card debt James took on for his parents. When we tried to discuss it, they told everyone we were being selfish and ungrateful. Mom's tearful victim act vanished, replaced by cold fury. I cannot believe my own children would attack me this way after everything I have sacrificed for you. We only ever borrowed when there were no other options and always intended to repay when circumstances improved. When have circumstances ever improved? James asked. When have you ever repaid anyone? My credit has been destroyed for 3 years now. I cannot even rent an apartment without Stephanie's name on the lease. Dad stepped forward, voice tight with anger. That is enough. We did what we had to do to keep this family afloat. If we occasionally needed help and took initiative rather than begging, that was for everyone's benefit. The ingratitude in this room is appalling. Initiative? I repeated incredulously. Is that what you call identity theft and fraud? Do not be so dramatic, he snapped. This is family, not some corporate transaction with strangers. Family does not steal from family, I countered. Family does not lie and manipulate and gaslight when confronted with their actions. If you pursue this any further, Dad threatened, you will no longer be considered part of this family. I promise you that. The room grew tense as the true dynamic was laid bare. This was not about a vacation or airline tickets. It was about control and a long-established pattern of financial abuse that had been normalized within our family system. Before anyone makes threats they might regret, I said, calmly pulling out my phone, you should know that I recorded my conversation with Dad yesterday when he came to my apartment. I pressed play and Dad's voice filled the room. We were going to tell you after. Present it as a done deal so you could not overthink it and back out. Your mother thought you would be more agreeable once everything was booked. Then his admission about using Jessica's card for James's expenses. And finally his threatening outburst calling me an ungrateful little bitch and threatening to cut me off from the family. Grandmother gasped. Uncle Roger's face reddened. Aunt Carolyn stared at my parents with dawning horror. That recording was made without my knowledge, Dad blustered. That is illegal. Oregon is a one-party consent state, I replied. As long as one person in the conversation consents to the recording, it is perfectly legal. I consented. The family meeting dissolved into chaos. Mom stormed out, Dad following after leveling one final glare at me. Aunt Carolyn began questioning Uncle Roger about other financial arrangements he might have made using family members' credit. James and Jessica huddled with me in the kitchen, comparing notes on past incidents and confirming patterns. By the time I left, the family had splintered into factions, years of financial manipulation exposed in a single afternoon. The Hawaii vacation was forgotten amidst more pressing concerns about who owed what to whom and how long the deception had been occurring. Driving home, I felt both vindicated and deeply sad. The family system I had grown up in was built on exploitation and lies. But for the first time, the truth was out in the open, and that offered a glimmer of hope for genuine healing, however painful the process might be. The Sunday following the family meeting, I channeled my emotions into action. I made an appointment with my bank's fraud department for Monday morning, contacted a lawyer specializing in identity theft cases, and documented every unauthorized transaction I could identify by reviewing past statements. The pattern went back further than I had realized. Small charges on my cards that I had dismissed as bank errors or forgotten purchases now stood out as probable unauthorized uses. Online shopping charges delivered to my parents' address, subscription services I had never signed up for, restaurant bills in cities I had not visited during times my parents were traveling. Monday morning, I met with Alicia, the fraud specialist at my bank. She reviewed my documentation with professional concern. Unfortunately, this is not uncommon with family-based identity theft, she explained. The emotional ties make victims less likely to report incidents, and perpetrators often start with small amounts to test boundaries before escalating. She helped me implement comprehensive protection measures, new accounts with enhanced security credit freezes, with all 3 major bureaus detailed fraud alerts, and 2-factor authentication on all financial platforms. She also strongly recommended filing a police report. I know that feels extreme for family matters, she acknowledged, seeing my hesitation, but creating an official record protects you if this escalates further. Without documentation, it becomes your word against theirs. That afternoon, I met with Erica Levinson, an attorney who specialized in identity theft cases. Her office was warm and understated with degrees from Stanford and Yale, displayed discreetly on the wall behind her desk. Financial abuse within families is far more common than most people realize, she told me, reviewing my documents. The recording you made of your father's admission is particularly valuable evidence. Many victims never get such clear acknowledgement of the intentional nature of the theft. She outlined my options, ranging from a formal cease and desist letter to criminal charges. I chose the middle path, filing a police report to establish an official record while sending a legal notice to my parents, demanding they cease all use of my financial information and make no further contact regarding financial matters. This puts them on notice that you are serious, Erica explained, and creates a paper trail if further action becomes necessary. The police report likely will not result in charges given the family relationship, but it establishes your status as a victim rather than a willing participant. Filing the police report was surreal. Officer Martinez took my statement matter-of-factly, asking detailed questions about how my parents might have obtained my card information and accessed my email. I explained about previous visits to my former apartment where mail might have been visible and shared digital birthday cards my mother had sent that could have contained tracking software. We see this kind of thing more often than you might think, he assured me. People assume strangers are the biggest threat to their financial security, but data shows family members and close friends are often responsible for identity theft precisely because they have easier access to personal information. Throughout this process, the family pressure continued unrelenting. Mom showed up at my workplace Tuesday afternoon, creating a scene in the reception area until security escorted her out. Dad called my boss directly, claiming a family health emergency required my immediate attention. Aunt Carolyn sent lengthy emails about forgiveness and family loyalty. Even grandmother left tearful voicemails about resolving conflicts before it is too late. The most disturbing incident occurred Thursday evening, when Dad appeared at my apartment again, this time with a check. $20,000, he announced, holding it out. More than enough to cover the tickets and compensate for your inconvenience. Take it, cash it, and we can put this unfortunate situation behind us. No need for lawyers or police reports or all this drama. I recognized the tactic immediately. The bribe disguised as restitution, designed to transform a criminal matter back into a private family issue. I cannot accept that, I said, not touching the check. This is not about money. It is about boundaries and trust and respect. Do not be ridiculous, he snapped. Everything is about money in the end. Take the check, call off your legal dogs, and let us go back to being a family. Being a family does not require me to allow financial abuse, I replied. I have made my position clear. Please leave or I will call building security again. He tore the check in half, let the pieces fall to the floor, and left, without another word. Through all this, unexpected support emerged. My firm's partners were unequivocally supportive once I explained the situation, implementing screening procedures for calls and visitors. My closest friends formed a protective circle, taking turns, staying with me and screening messages during the worst of the harassment. Most surprising was the quiet solidarity from other family members. Jessica texted daily, sharing her own progress in securing her finances. James and Stephanie invited me to dinner, apologizing for not speaking up sooner about the pattern of abuse. Even Travis, initially aligned with my parents, reached out after discovering they had attempted to use his new credit card the very day after the family meeting. 2 weeks after the initial incident, Erica's office sent the formal cease and desist letters. The harassment calls dropped dramatically, though occasional tearful messages from Mom still appeared, now focused on her deteriorating health and how my cruelty was affecting her blood pressure. I began working with a new therapist, Dr. Kelsey, who specialized in family financial abuse. Our first session was revelatory. What you are experiencing is a specific form of trauma, she explained. Financial abuse creates both practical damage to your economic well-being and deep emotional wounds related to trust, security, and family bonds. Healing requires addressing both aspects. Through our weekly sessions, I began to understand how thoroughly my parents had normalized financial exploitation, creating a family culture where boundaries were seen as selfishness and financial independence as a resource to be tapped rather than respected. Your response has been remarkably healthy, Dr. Kelsey noted. In our third session, many victims remain trapped in cycles of guilt and obligation for decades, unable to break free from the emotional manipulation even when they recognize the abuse. I still feel guilty sometimes, I admitted. When Mom leaves messages about her health problems or Dad talks about family loyalty. That is entirely normal, she assured me. They installed those emotional buttons throughout your childhood specifically so they could press them when needed. Recognizing the manipulation does not immediately disable the emotional response. That takes time and practice. By the 6-week mark, the acute crisis had largely subsided. My parents had stopped direct contact after receiving a second letter from Erica warning of harassment charges. The extended family had settled into new alliances with most relatives, quietly supportive of my position even if they were not ready to confront my parents directly. The practical protections were firmly in place: new accounts, enhanced security measures, regular credit monitoring, and legal documentation of the theft. The emotional healing would take longer, but I had the support and professional guidance needed for that journey. As spring turned to summer, the original Hawaii vacation dates approached and passed without mention. The mandatory family reunion had been forgotten amidst the greater reckoning with years of financial manipulation. In its place, a smaller, more authentic connection was forming among those of us who had finally spoken our truths. 6 months after discovering the fraudulent airline tickets, my life had transformed in ways both practical and profound. The external changes were easily quantifiable. My credit score had recovered from the temporary damage caused by the disputes. My new financial security measures had prevented 2 subsequent attempts to access my accounts, and the legal matters had been resolved without requiring court appearances. The internal shifts were more subtle but equally significant. The hypervigilance that had characterized those first weeks after the incident had gradually eased into healthy caution. The nightmares about financial ruin had faded. The reflexive guilt when setting boundaries had diminished, though not disappeared entirely. My contact with my parents remained minimal and strictly on my terms. Mom had eventually sent a carefully worded apology, clearly crafted during the financial counseling sessions the credit card company had required as part of their fraud resolution process. It acknowledged the misunderstanding about the tickets, but stopped short of addressing the larger pattern of manipulation. Dad maintained his distance, communicating only through brief formal emails, regarding practical matters like returning mail that sometimes still arrived at their house. The threatened family excommunication had materialized to some extent, with invitations to certain family gatherings conspicuously absent. The loss stung less than I had anticipated. In contrast, my relationship with James had evolved into something healthier than ever before. Free from our parents' triangulation, we spoke weekly, sharing resources and supporting each other's journey toward financial independence and emotional clarity. I should have warned you about the tickets, he admitted during a Sunday brunch at his apartment. I suspected what they were planning, but I was scared to go against them. You have been conditioned your entire life to comply, I reminded him. We both were. Breaking that programming takes time. Stephanie, serving coffee at the kitchen counter, nodded in agreement. Your parents are master manipulators. They had James convinced his loyalty to them was more important than his loyalty to me, to our marriage, even to himself. That took years to untangle. James's progress was evident in small but meaningful ways. He had opened his first new credit account since beginning credit repair, secured a promotion at work that he might previously have declined as too much pressure, and started setting verbal boundaries with our parents during their pressure, increasingly rare, conversations. My circle of support had expanded beyond family to include a small but dedicated group focused on recovering from financial abuse. We met monthly in a private room at the local library, sharing strategies and successes under the guidance of a financial therapist. It was there I met Elena, whose parents had taken out student loans in her name without her knowledge, and Marcus, whose grandmother had opened credit cards using his social security number when he was still in high school. Their stories echoed elements of my own experience, creating a sense of understanding I had never found elsewhere. The hardest part for me, Elena shared during one meeting, was accepting that people who genuinely loved me could also exploit me financially. Those two realities seemed incompatible, until I understood that love and respect are different things. That insight resonated deeply. My parents did love me in their way, but they had never respected my autonomy, my boundaries, or my right to financial independence. That distinction helped me navigate the complex emotions of maintaining distance from them while acknowledging our connection. On a practical level, my financial security had never been stronger. The forced audit of all my accounts had revealed several areas for improvement, from increasing my emergency fund to diversifying my retirement investments. The fraud protection measures had evolved into more comprehensive financial planning, with the help of Mia, a certified financial planner who specialized in recovery from economic abuse. Most of my clients come to me after some form of financial trauma, Mia explained during our initial consultation. Whether it is family exploitation, divorce, or identity theft, that violation often serves as a catalyst for taking complete control of their financial lives. That had certainly been true for me. The airline ticket incident, painful as it was, had pushed me to claim my financial power more fully than ever before. I now reviewed my accounts weekly, maintained meticulous records, and had clear written policies for any financial interactions with others, including friends and colleagues. One unexpected outcome was discovering my passion for financial education. What began as sharing resources with James and Jessica evolved into volunteer work with a local nonprofit that taught basic financial literacy to high school students. Standing before a classroom of teenagers discussing credit scores and compound interest, I often reflected on how differently my life might have unfolded if I had received such information before college. As the one-year anniversary of the Hawaii ticket incident approached, I received an unexpected email from Aunt Carolyn. She was organizing a small family gathering at her lake house and wanted me to know I was welcome with absolutely no expectation of financial contribution. I have been doing a lot of reflecting on how our family handles money, she wrote. Your courage in speaking up made me examine patterns I had accepted, without question, for decades. While I cannot undo past mistakes, I am committed to creating healthier financial relationships moving forward. I accepted the invitation with cautious optimism. The gathering turned out to be a watershed moment. Only those family members who had acknowledged the past financial dysfunction were present, creating a space where honest conversation was possible. We shared meals, played board games, and tentatively discussed creating new family traditions based on connection rather than spending. On the final evening, as we sat around a bonfire watching the sunset over the lake, Jessica raised her glass in a toast. To boundaries, she said simply, and to the courage it takes to enforce them. The simple acknowledgement brought tears to my eyes. The path to this moment had been painful, but the alternative remaining trapped in cycles of exploitation and guilt would have been far more destructive in the long run. Financial abuse thrives in silence and isolation. By speaking my truth, I had not only protected myself, but created space for others to recognize and name their experiences. The family system was forever changed. Some relationships lost or diminished, others strengthened and renewed. The healing was ongoing, both individually and collectively. As I drove home from the lake house, I reflected on the journey of the past year. The innocent young accountant who had received that first group text about Hawaii no longer existed. In her place was a woman who understood that financial boundaries are also emotional boundaries, that love without respect is incomplete, and that sometimes the most caring act is simply saying no. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members who did not respect your financial independence? The courage it takes to stand up for yourself in these situations can be immense. If you have experienced family financial pressure or manipulation, know that you are not alone. Drop a comment sharing your experience or a boundary you are proud of establishing. Like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe for more stories about overcoming family challenges, and share with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to protect their financial well-being even from the people they love. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, true family supports your growth, not your exploitation.